Hello and welcome to a new show here on the channel. This is called The TV Show. And on this show, we'll be covering everything from broadcast TV to original streaming content to web video, basically any episodic video that isn't movie length.
Introduce yourself since it's our first episode there.
Yeah, I forgot to introduce. I'm Uncle John. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm John. I dropped the uncle when we started this whole YouTube thing. It was bound to happen.
And I am from Chicago, Scotto.
And for this first episode of the TV show, we are also beginning our two-part tribute to the late, great Harry Anderson, who passed away just a couple of days ago. And we're taking a look at the first episode of Night Court. Night Court was an American television sitcom that aired on NBC from January 4th, 1984 to May 31st, 1992, almost my entire adolescence. And it was set in the night shift of a municipal Manhattan Municipal Court, criminal court part 2, presided over by a young unorthodox judge, Harold T. Harry Stone, played by Harry Anderson. And the series was created by writer Reinhold Weege. I've looked into it; it is pronounced Weege. It's Weege. I checked a bunch of sources. He previously worked on Barney Miller in the 70s and early 80s, which explains a lot. I did not know that until I did research for this.
How familiar are you with Barney Miller?
I've seen a handful of it growing up. I need to go back to it. I know it was
definitely great. Well, because that was the thing. You had Cheers on before this, which is kind of the descendant of Taxi.
Right.
And then you had Night Court after that, which is the descendant of Barney Miller.
Right. And I almost forgot about Lana and Sheila. We had a different court clerk in the entire first season.
Oh, right.
And they went through. Yeah, they went through 3 different defenders before they got to Markie Post.
Right.
Sheila was just in the first episode.
I forgot about Sheila entirely.
Yeah,
that was kind of like, who the fuck is this kind of?
I remembered Liz, the next one, but I didn't realize that she was around for a season. And then Billy. Well, by the way, Liz was played by. Here it is. Paula Kelly played Liz. Billy Young was played by Ellen Foley, and they were around for a season each.
I thought Billy didn't even last that long. I didn't think
she went for a full season.
It was the clerk I remembered, but it was the defender in the pilot that I did not remember. I forgot about Sheila.
I thought Billy and Liz were around for like 5 episodes before Markie Post came in. Markie Post came in the beginning of season 2. She did 1 episode, but she was still on the Fall Guy at the time.
Oh wow!
She had to wait till that was over, and then season 3 she came in full time. And Charles Robinson, who played Mac, came in season 2.
And of course, we lost our other sidekick for Bull.
Yeah.
The other bailiffs, Selma and Flo. Can't forget Selma and Flo.
Selma Diamond and Florence Hayslip, both older women who played the bailiff, both passed away from lung cancer during the run of the show.
And then they had to cast someone younger so she could fucking stay around.
Yeah. And then this also reminded me that at the end of the first season, because Karen Austin, who played Lana, only did 10 episodes, they had this running gag for a few episodes where they had different court clerks.
Oh.
That was the end of season 2, just before Mac came in. Also, I forgot Bull had more of a New York accent at first.
Oh yeah,
Bull was born on the New York accent in that first episode.
Bull was a completely different character in the pilot.
Yeah.
Than what he turned out to be.
I love the part where he's standing under the lights.
Right. That's the one thing I remembered from the pilot more than anything else. That was when he did the lights and the horns.
Yeah.
But just the part where the phone rings, he picks it up, he's like, "Yeah, what? No." Hangs up, and he goes, "Oh yeah, tell the judge the mayor called." The clerk's like, "What the fuck? That's how you talk to the mayor?"
Yeah. Well, and they kind of act like he's 16. The whole deal is that there's this new young judge coming in, and he's underqualified. They think he's underqualified.
Yeah.
And Harry Anderson was in his early 30s and looked
right.
He didn't look young. He acted like he was supposed to be like 16. But given that this is a tribute, and this is something I can say for both of our tributes, he made this show. Harry Anderson really pulled this show together.
Well, he's a crazy everyman in it, you know?
Yeah.
the uh, you know, it's kind of weird how he changes brings the crowd on with him in this. How
Mhm.
some of them are ready to kill him, and by the end, they actually we'll do whatever you want, sort of thing.
Yeah.
He's like got his their loyalty already, except for
Well,
Dan.
yeah. Because he jumps into his first case and he's going to ignore the order and
Yes.
take this guy Hacksaw, who he's friends with, and it really sets the tone. It kind of
Well,
shows you
actually,
who Harry Stone is.
if you notice, the first joke of the entire series is the maintenance guy being a voyeur
Yeah, yeah.
to the couple having sex across the
Which
way
again
from them.
continued throughout the series. I'm pretty sure that's where Friends got that gag from.
Probably, yeah.
And they also, and this I was very happy to see, Carla B was in the first episode. I didn't realize she was there from the beginning.
With the prostitute.
Yeah, yeah, the recurring
Yes.
prostitute. She was there through the whole run. There were only 3 actors who were there, 4 counting Carla, who were there from the beginning on through. Harry Anderson, Dan Larroquette, and Richard Mall.
John Larroquette.
Yeah, John Larroquette is brilliant as Dan Fielding and was brilliant from the beginning.
That's why, as much as I love Harry Anderson, I mean John Larroquette is just amazing too.
Yeah, yeah. And they're brilliant foils for each other.
Yeah.
Because Harry Anderson, like you said, is just everyman, very Jimmy Stewart.
Yes.
And Dan is just evil and very arch. And if I had to recast Dan Fielding, I mean, as brilliant as Larroquette was, if I had to cast somebody else, it's a Jeffrey Combs character.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's just arch and aggressive and dark, and it's this beautiful contrast to Jimmy Stewart in the form of Harry Anderson.
And you can see in this, they clearly wanted Bull to be the Fonzie of the show.
Yeah.
He was going to be the comic relief.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, under James Burrows' direction that this had, where the taxi approach.
Right.
I mean, it could have been more like Cheers if he had stayed on to do this.
Yeah.
But he didn't really see that much future in the show himself. He just did this pilot.
And it gave it a chance to be something different.
Yeah.
Because, and those who don't know us, we reference this show all the time. We're huge Night Court fans. And the brilliance of Night Court is that it was unlike anything that had been on before then. It was the first dramedy.
It went to the absurd,
It went to the absurd. It got very dramatic at points.
Unapologetically absurd,
Yeah. My yak hair arrived.
Yes. Gotta love the coin of justice.
Yeah. Harry's flipping a coin to decide cases, and
everyone thinks he's just a lunatic.
And it keeps coming up heads, which he always says is the positive outcome. And it's obvious to us that it's a two-headed coin,
right?
But the everybody in the court is walking on pins and needles, worrying for when it's going to come up tails, and he finally reveals it's a two-headed coin.
And they kind of they break this part of his character later in the series because the point is he doesn't believe in luck.
No.
He's
a magician. Magicians don't do that. Magicians are all about skill and logic and reason.
There is an episode later where he loses his lucky rabbit's foot, though.
Yes.
And horrendous things happen to him, including like a cat going down a mail slot. Like, I don't know how many stories.
And they also set up that he is a bit unhinged. In a later, I think it might have been in the season. Oh no, it was a later season. When someone he had tried dies, gets killed, and he blames himself.
Yeah.
He completely goes off the deep end.
Is that the Wheeler episode?
That's the Mayak arrived episode. The Wheelers are in it later also. Yeah, they kind of bring him back. But he wants to put a mustache on the Statue of Liberty using yak hair. That's how far off the deep end he goes.
Oh yeah, now I remember this one.
That's later on. The Wheeler episode you're thinking about, I think it's in the next episode.
Well, there was like a kid who I forget. He like a landlord.
Mm-hmm.
He has to side in favor of a landlord for evicting a family.
Right.
And this kid, runs off into the night.
That was the second or third episode. That's very early. That's when they introduced the Wheelers. Also, loved that the peanut gallery gag was introduced in this episode. The people watching the case just interject randomly. Just
Oh,
stand
of
up and shout
course.
things.
It total Barney Miller, because
Mhm.
the gag in Barney Miller was they'd have this guy in the holding
Right,
cell,
right.
and he would just interject his opinions about the lives of these detectives. They're in a jam, and you've got this guy who thinks he's Jesus or something, or a
Yeah.
werewolf, going, maybe you should try doing this instead. You're just like, wait, what?
And the day players, the reason that worked, the day players on this show were just as good as the main cast.
Right.
They hired
Second
brilliant actors. Hmm?
They had Michael J. Fox in very
Yeah.
early, if I remember
In the
right.
second episode. I was so
Yeah.
tempted to watch that one too last night. Um, and this is also the show that made me aware of Mel Torme.
Really?
I'd never heard of Mel Torme before Night Court.
I-
Harry, there's a running gag where Harry is obsessed with Mel Torme.
right.
He has a line toward the end of the episode. I own every record that Mel Torme ever made, and I'm going to marry the girl who's impressed with that.
Well, right. That's the job of the pilot is, of course, to enter those little seeds of the character. Like, what do you go off on? And
I've adapted that line so many times to other things. I own every Far Side book. I own 5 copies of Fooly Cooley.
of course, why Mel Torme? Honestly,
Well, I don't know. Maybe Ari Anderson was a fan. It was kind of actually no. I know why. I remember now. His son, I think his son or his nephew or someone related to him, Tracy Torme, worked on the show.
really.
Yes, I don't know exactly what their relationship was, but yeah, there was a Tracy Torme who worked on the show who was related to Mel Torme.
And that's how they got him. Which I think, as far as running gags go, it could be one of the best ever
Yeah.
recurring roles.
Because later in the season, Mel Torme shows up a number of times. He was a recurring character on the show.
And the fact that you have this guy who just absolutely loves him, but just fucks everything up.
Yeah.
And that his idol just hates him and loathes him. Oh, that was so good.
Yeah. And there's this great bit at the end, and I haven't mentioned much about Karen Austin, but the original court clerk, she had a tendency to be a bit melodramatic.
Yeah.
Which on itself didn't quite work, but in a scene with Harry, like at the end, it was a great contrast.
Like, her arc doesn't make it very much sense in the terms of this episode. They probably shouldn't have resolved it as quickly as they did in the pilot. Like, he shouldn't have converted her as easily as he did.
That would have been nice to have that go throughout the season.
Well, right. And the same with the Defender, too. I mean, just the whole, like...
He never really won Dan over.
Well, right. Danny did not win over. But the Defender, he did.
Defend, yeah. Well, yeah. And on throughout the seasons, Billy was a bit of a love interest. Christine was always kind of a love interest.
Yeah.
Him and Dan, which is one of the things I love about the show, is they always had a bit of an adversarial relationship.
Right.
Even though they were very close friends, which they made clear a number of times, they always were kind of at each other's throats a little bit.
Yeah. And just the ball busting, of course.
Yeah.
It was just a chief element of the show.
Mm-hmm. So, on the hearing, we say whether or not we'd recommend the album. Obviously, we both highly recommend the show. I love Night Court. It's probably my favorite series of all time.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you'd have to throw that out there if you're asking for someone for an old school sitcom.
And just to close, we have a little bit of feedback from Bodo on Twitter.
How many feedback? It's our first episode.
I mentioned that a couple of days ago that we were going to be talking about it. I always promote what we're going to be reviewing or talking about a couple of days ahead of time so I can get feedback. Bodo said, I was thinking about this last night. Was everybody on that show a one-hit wonder?
Oh.
Now, Harry Anderson, I don't know if he ever... No, he had that Dave... what was his name? Dave...
He did the Dave Barry
show.
show.
Yeah, for a while.
It was actually called Dave's World.
Yeah, I think... that's it. Christine, Marky Post had Hearts of Fire with John Ritter for a number of years.
Did they last long?
They lasted 3 or 4 years. The John Larroquette show lasted like 4 years. By the way, the hooker with the heart of gold. I just thought about that with the John Larroquette show.
Yeah.
Really an 80s and early 90s trope.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Charles Robinson has worked consistently. Everybody on the show who survived it worked consistently.
I see Robinson like appearing in different
Yeah, he
places,
does guest shots a lot. So does Dan Larroquette.
commercials and stuff.
Um,
Richard Mall probably worked more than anybody else, though,
so
since he
they
does Batman the Animated Series
right,
voices.
true. So they never had another 8-year series, but they had smaller series, and they've just worked consistently. Most of the cast worked consistently from the 70s up till now, which
Yeah,
is a hell of an accomplishment for an actor. The only exception is Marsha Warfield. She stopped acting, or hasn't worked since '99.
Larroquette has done some interesting appearances. Like he had some very interesting roles. I think he did a bit of West Wing, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken,
He
where he was.
shows up a lot on those Law and Order shows.
Which I
Yeah.
mean, if he were a prosecutor on Law and Order, that would be
Well,
I would
on those
watch.
kind of court drama, legal shows. I've seen him on a handful of those.
Oh, that's right. Did he do like a Boston Legal
Boston
or
Legal,
something?
that was it. That was the one I think he's had a recurring role on. I gotta watch that. I gotta just see those episodes because I want to see him and Shatner in a scene.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that wraps it up for Night Court. Once again, rest in peace, Mr. Anderson. Thank you. Unintentional Matrix reference there. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't. Down in the description, you'll find links to Night Court on IMDb and Wikipedia. Unfortunately, it is not streaming, on any subscription service anywhere. But you can buy the seasons on Amazon. I have the first 3 digitally. And of course, until next time. And actually, I think we're doing 2 weeks in a row. I should mention this show is going to be a bit sporadic.
Yeah.
Our third show is going to be a little sporadic. I've got a couple of solo shows I'm thinking about doing. Saturdays are going to be interesting because they're going to be shorter. These shows aren't going out as a podcast.
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of an occasional show now and then, different series. Until next time, when we will be doing 2 episodes of the TV show in a row, when we'll be beginning a complete watch of the anime Serial Experiments Lane, which will be very interesting. I've seen it probably 20 times. You've never seen it. Can't wait to get your reaction. We're going to be going 1 episode at a time, but it's not going to be every week. It's going to be every now and then when we feel it, when we feel, able to. Until then, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you are.